Hey, what's going on? I'm Matt O'Leary back with another video, and today I'll be talking about the Jets versus the 49ers defensive line. I'll explain why in a second, but before we get started, just wanted to mention you can follow me on social media at Matt O'Leary NY if you haven't already. Also, check out the Just Jets podcast, wherever it is you get your podcast, or right here. You also should know about the giveaway by now. We're close, 997, almost there to 10K. When I get to 10K, you are going to potentially win a Zach Wilson jersey or two different packages from Manscaped. So enter to win. You know what to do. So PFF put out a tweet saying that Robert Saleh might actually have a better defensive line with the New York Jets than what the 49ers have. And a lot of people got very upset, casuals, if you will, saying there's no way that the Jets defensive line could even hold a candle to the 49ers. People were hashtag mad online. Well, I pulled the numbers on essentially the top six defensive linemen for the New York Jets versus the top six for the San Francisco 49ers going into this season. I looked at data from the last 2 years, and what I found, it's close. I would probably, you know what? I'm not going to play spoiler just yet. I'll go through everything. We'll compare and contrast, but it is very, very close, which a lot of people don't want to even say. So since each player, and especially the 49ers, they had a ton of injuries last year, they didn't necessarily play the same amount of games. So I did this on a per game basis. So what I did was sacks per game, hits per game, hurries per game, pressures per game, and tackles for loss per game. Yes, there we go. Those are the five. I put all stats in for those six players, the top six on each team, and then I averaged them out to show really just where they stand. So we'll start with the New York Jets first. Quinnen Williams, Carl Lawson, Sheldon Rankins, John Franklin Myers, Vinny Curry, Folu Fadukasi. That is a really good top six unit. So we'll start with Quinnen Williams. He was at 0.36 sacks per game over the last 2 years, 0.77 hits per game, hurries 0.38, pressures 1.19, tackles for loss 0.53. Looking at Carl Lawson, similar in sacks per game, hits per game, and pressures per game were significantly higher, as you'll see here, while tackles for loss were a little bit lower. Sheldon Rankins' numbers weren't great, and I think it has to do with the last couple of years. If I was including a 3-year sample size, this probably looks at a little bit different, although you can make the same case for the 49ers side with D Ford. So, the 2-year sample size I think is good enough. Sheldon Rankins, like I said, not sticking out. John Franklin Myers, very effective. The 0.16 sacks per game, but look at the pressures per game at over 1.29, hurries per game 0.65, which led the team in that category. So he's an extremely effective pass rusher, as Jets fans know. Vinny Curry, again, just solid. Sacks per game 0.3. Hits per game 0.81, pressures 1.15, really solid there. The Jets have 4 players who are averaging over 1 pressure per game, and Sheldon Rankins is pretty damn close. So if you want to do it to 0.9 pressures per game and over, they have 5 of 6 there. Folu Fadukasi, not really, someone who's going to get after it, cutting after the passer, but tackle for loss 0.45. Second to just Quinnen Williams. He's a stout run defender, so he's not going to put up monster numbers in any of those categories there. Looking at the 49ers now, I'm using Nick Bosa, Eric Armstead, Javon Kinlaw, who was a rookie last year, so we only have 1 year of data for him, Zack Kerr, who's a free agent signing for them, D Ford, and DJ Jones. Those are the 6 defensive linemen I am using for them. Nick Bosa's numbers, really, really good. 0.5 sacks per game, 1.44 hits per game, 1.56 hurries per game, pressures per game at 2.78, and tackles for loss per game at 0.89. Really solid numbers. Eric Armstead, also solid, 0.42 sacks per game, hits just under 1, hurries 0.84, pressures at almost 2, 1.81, and tackles for loss 0.53. Kinlaw, as a rookie last year, left a little bit to be desired, although his pressure number is probably the best at 0.71. Zack Kerr, his best attribute was pressures per game at 0.68. D Ford, down a couple of years, especially with an injury, but still pretty effective, 0.54 sacks per game, half a hit per game, 0.75 hurries per game, 1.42 pressures per game, and 0.5 tackles for loss per game. And then DJ Jones, more of a run-stopping defensive lineman, so not really putting up monster numbers there. So looking at the two compared The 49ers have a sack per game at 0.31 to the Jets 0.24. Jets get more hits per game by a pretty good chunk at 0.81 versus 0.64. Hurries per game, the 49ers better at 0.66. Hurries for the Jets 0.41. Pressures pretty close, 1.3 for the 49ers, 1.24 for the New York Jets. And tackles for loss per game, 0.45 for the 49ers to 0.38 for the New York Jets. So, as I said, this is close. The Jets have a really damn good defensive line, and most people say that 49ers defensive line is one of the best in football, a top 3 unit in the NFL. Well, the Jets numbers are pretty close to that unit. So when looking at this team's strength, I don't think anyone will sit here and tell you otherwise, that the defensive line isn't the Jets' most, the biggest strength. But a lot of casual fans or a lot of NFL fans who maybe don't watch the Jets day in and day out, I don't think they realize just how good this defensive line is. And maybe you probably take the defensive line of the 49ers over the New York Jets, but it's a lot closer than I think people give it credit for. So that's going to do it for me. Let me know what you think of the numbers down below in the comments. Did this surprise you, or was this as expected? Let me know. Thank you so much for tuning in. Once again, I'm Matt O'Leary, and I will talk to you next time.